Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Walker with the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our candidate interview. We're doing this on behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, which is a cooperative effort of the Johnson County Chambers of Commerce. With us today is Chris Newlin, who's running for Ward 6, Overland Park City Council. Chris, welcome, and before we get into our questions, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for the City Council?
Well, first of all, thanks to the Chamber and the Policy Committee for having me here today to give my views. As you said, my name is Chris Newlin, and I am running for Ward 6, Overland Park City Council. And many people may remember me as their council member from 2017 to 2021 in Ward 6. And during that time, I really helped transform some major things in this city, and I want to do that again. When I got off the council and took a couple years to reflect on my family and my career, what I kept hearing from the community is we missed that proactive representation that we had in Ward 6. Someone who was always out in the community trying to inform us of what was happening, coming to constituent meetings on a regular basis, meeting with us as neighbors to tell us what is happening so that we can get a sense of what Overland Park's trying to do to keep us going forward. I'm running again because it's true, we don't have that in Ward 6, and I think a great point to make of that is why we're doing this interview today, and that is that my opponent decided not to respond to the Chamber's emails of wanting to set up a one-on-one forum, and he must not want to be here to face me and see what we differ on, to make sure that the community understands the transparency that we have on putting our views out there for everyone to see. So I look forward to answering the questions today and having the better part of the community understand what I'm all about and what I will bring back to the council coming forward.
Great. Well, why don't we dive into our questions? And the first one is, do you believe the city of Overland Park is headed in the right direction?
I think in general the city is headed in the right direction. I think what we have here in this great community, we're thriving, and there's not a lot that we're doing wrong, but that doesn't mean nothing needs to be fixed. And I think the number one thing that we need to continue to focus on is improving our infrastructure. In Ward 6, we're on old county roads, and we need to keep investing in our thoroughfares and our collectors to make sure that those are updated appropriately and quickly in some fashion, because that's hurting our stormwater with these big storms that we get. And it's also creating more of an accident-prone place. As we move forward with an infrastructure, that 3/8 sales tax, and we need to make sure that the bridges that are out there going over the creeks, they're maintained properly, and that there's safety all around. I do think the council, in a way, might be headed in the wrong direction. There's no compromise anymore. There's no trying to make the residences of full happy. There's just a lot of talking into thin air, and I really want to get back on the council to bring that compromisability together and make sure we continue in a positive trajectory.
You mentioned a couple things in the policy realm, and my next question is, what are going to be your top 3 policy issues if you're elected to the council?
I think the infrastructure, as I said before, is probably my number 1 policy that we need to do. We need to make sure that 3/8 sales tax, which is dedicated to infrastructure, is being used appropriately. We are looking for a way to wean us off the chip seal. I understand that is not something everyone really wants, and I get it. Kicking around rocks is not fun all the time, but it's not going to happen overnight without increasing taxes a lot. But we should use what we all voted for and this community wanted to put that towards it. If we can wean ourselves off that and other places from the IAG recommendations, I think that's a bonus. The other thing is public safety. Public safety, to me, having a safe community is what everyone expects when they move to Overland Park. I'm really proud of the Overland Park Crisis Action Team, which is something I helped create when I was the chair of the Mental Health Task Force. And this team is going out there to help people with mental health issues, treat them on site, and get them the help they need without going to the hospital or going to jail. It's just getting them taken care of right there. I was really proud of helping create that and voting for it. My opponent, unfortunately, he voted against it not once but 2 different times. And I really think that taking the consideration of people's safety should be a top priority for any council member. And my third one is community. It's being out there and out in front, talking to residents on a regular basis. Your job as a council member isn't just to sit up at the dais 4 times a month and make decisions. You got to be out there talking to people, getting ideas, finding ways they want to see the city changed and doing it appropriately, and also bringing them up to date on ideas that are happening when development's in the area. Make them understand why this can be a positive if it is, or maybe why it's a negative. Listen to their negatives and help them see where it can be good for them, because sometimes it's not just about the people that are living there today, it's about the people who are going to live there in the future, and that includes our kids and our grandkids.
You mentioned taxes a little bit. So what are your views on the services and the value that our city's residents receive for the tax dollars that they pay?
Well, I think the tax rate that we have in Overland Park is I know it's the lowest in any first-class city in the state of Kansas, and it's not even a little bit. Any surrounding city in Johnson County is anywhere from 68 to 98% higher than what we have in Overland Park. An example is my house. I just looked at this. I pay a little over $1,000 a year. That pays for the police and the fire so that I'm safe and that my home gets taken care of if there is a fire. That's snow removal. That's getting my street maintained. That's having ability to get to parks. That's keeping lights on so the traffic is going well. There's a lot that goes into what we pay very little in taxes. I think we receive a very high value. If I go to a neighboring city, I'm going to pay double that and still only get that same value. So I think there's a lot to that, but I do think we have to make sure we're watching the budget appropriately, trim where it's necessary, but be careful about that because you don't want to take services away that the community really does want.
I want to switch topics a little bit and ask you, what role, if any, do you believe the city should play in economic development to bring jobs and capital investment to our community?
I think the city should play a big role in that, and they should have a say in what they want in their city. You know, what kind of city do we want to be? I don't think Overland Park, though it is the economic driver for Johnson County, it has the most businesses, we don't want to be a business-only city. We want to have nice amenities for our community, fun, entertainment, right? We want to have nice parks and trails so people can go to those and as a neighborhood can enjoy those things just right from steps from their driveway. I think that, you know, we want to be the shining city on the hill. We are what people want to attain to be, and I want to keep it that way. It does take time and effort to make us that way, but I believe that we're headed that way, and we'll continue in that path if I'm elected.
As the city considers future development and redevelopment projects, can you describe your views on how the city should best manage this growth?
Yeah, growth has been moving pretty quickly over the last, I would say 10 years. Post the Great Recession, we just kind of had a backlog, and post the pandemic, we had a little bit of a backlog. So that's kind of sped some things up. But we need to put a message out there, as I said before, of what we want. Do we want mixed use developments in our community? Do we want only chain restaurants? Do we want to bring in small businesses and new types of restaurants and new people reinvesting in our community? We also need to make sure that we're beating blight. No one wants to see blight, and I think it's best when the community, from a redevelopment standpoint, gets ahead of it, right? Hey, we notice this is headed in the wrong direction, and having that vision that if we do nothing here, it's worse than doing something. So let's do something about it. What can we have here? Such as having that vision of on College of bringing things toward closer to the street at College and Metcalf. That's a smart vision that I really supported in doing that road diet, because if you bring things closer, it becomes more walkable for those businesses down there, which creates economic growth. And people do enjoy that, just getting out in the sun and having a great day walking to businesses.
You know, sitting on the council, a lot of the decisions you make today impact what this community looks like down the road. So what do you think the greatest challenges that the city faces now and over the next 10 years, and how do you plan to address them?
I think the number one thing that we face is a proper housing. We're going to have a housing shortage, right? We are in that right now, not only in the city of Overland Park, but in the county as a whole. And what type of housing do we want, especially in Ward 6? And I'm having a hard time getting around that, because I understand that a lot of our residents down there don't want to have so many apartments happening. But we're finding that our council right now is also denying single-family homes in Ward 6. We've seen 2 single-family home developments get denied for reasons that we don't understand. And this is actually driving down, this is part of the housing problem because our assessments keep going up, and that's because there's a shortage of restock selling of homes. Our county is down about half of its inventory, so we need to build a little bit more, and we probably need to build in a smaller footprint too. And I don't mean that as in, 1,000 square foot homes, but with the average home, especially in Ward 6, being above 5,600 square feet, plus a lot size of being 10,000 square feet, that is taking up a lot of space, and we may need to look at neighborhoods that are a little closer together, and provide a smaller footprint, and that way we're bringing in a younger environment, and we're sustaining this housing so that there's turnover in that housing, which creates the economic function going forward for us as a community.
Well, you've stolen a lot of thunder from my last question for you, and that's really about housing, and I wanted to ask you, what specific proposals do you have to support the goal of providing accessible housing throughout the city?
I think it's a hard dynamic. I do think that we need to go up in some places, and I think in the north was where we have the ability to redevelop in these almost blighted areas, to maybe go to a mixed-use development. I am a personal fan of mixed-use developments, not because there's apartments. I like the fact that people can go there and they can stay there and shop there. They don't have to get in their cars, right? That leaves less traffic. I think those are smart little neighborhoods that can be put together. But down south, I think we got to come up with neighborhoods that are smaller footprint and exceptions to the rule in a zoning, where you take like Chapel Hill, for example. That's a great neighborhood that actually its setback is closer than the normal setback. Its lot size is that 8,000 square foot lot size. There's a lot more homes in that area, and that neighborhood is thriving. We need more of that in Ward 6, because I think that will help drive the starting value of homes down a little bit, give us more inventory, allowing the next generation, people like my son who's 20 years old, right, looking for the future, to stay here in Overland Park, start a business, build a family, and grow old here just like we want to do.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to answer some of our questions today, and I want to wrap up by giving you a chance to talk about anything you'd like to address and offer some closing comments to the audience.
Yeah, I think this election is interesting. We've never had this in Overland Park, where you have the previous council member has a 4-year record and the current council member has a 4-year record that are really close together. We used to be colleagues. I think you can take a look at those records and see who's actually supported things in this city for the good. I've always supported the police department and everything that they've done. My opponent has voted against them 4 different times. You can notice who's got in trouble in this election, or during their time, who's been fined by the Ethics Commission, and who hasn't been fined by the Ethics Commission. Currently, my opponent has a $1,000 fine out there for not even filing a campaign report, which is really simple to do and takes 5 minutes. I'm someone recently who found out that Mills Farm is looking for a crosswalk help to have the safety of kids. They've emailed my opponent many times with no response. We don't need that in Ward 6. We need quick responses. We need solutions to be taken care of. The residents are our number one concern, and we should be listening to them and helping them achieve what they need. But at the same time, we also need to think about the city for the next 10, 15, and 20 years. And that's the vision I take. Whenever I make my decisions, I'm trying to think of who's next in Overland Park. Who's coming here? Who's going to live here after me? And what's the legacy that we need to leave as a city for future generations? And so I hope everyone gets out on November 7th, understands that Chris Newlin will continue that proactiveness as an elected official once again, wants to be there, wants to represent Ward 6 on the city again, and do great things to help build Overland Park to a better future. Vote November 7th. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for being here, and just remind everybody that's watching this, advance voting begins on Saturday, October 28th. And of course, Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th.